Introduction. Welcome. You are listening to Boring History for Sleep. Tonight we are stepping back in time to the world of ancient Rome. Not the Rome of marble temples and triumphant generals, but the Rome of everyday life. Ordinary people moving through narrow streets, carrying the weight of routine, bound by customs that shaped their days. For this journey, we will wander into the communal bathhouse, a place that may seem elegant and luxurious when imagined from a distance, but which in reality carried with it a rhythm of noise, discomfort, and relentless routine. Across the next 2 hours, we will pass through 4 windows into Rome's past. First, we will immerse ourselves in the textures and sensations of a Roman bathhouse, imagining what it would be like if you were there, enduring the heat, the crowd, and the subtle indignities of daily cleansing. Then we will step into the life of a Roman emperor, Commodus, whose reign was as turbulent as the baths were steamy. Later, we will follow the trail of archaeologists into the ruins of Pompeii, where plaster and ash preserve moments of daily life frozen in time. And finally, we will sit down at a Roman banquet, surrounded by excess and spectacle, and glimpse what life was like for the privileged elite. The pace will be gentle, the details steady, a path for the mind to wander, to linger on, or to drift away from entirely. So let us begin, quietly, with the sound of running water in the background of your imagination, and imagine yourself stepping into a Roman bathhouse. Segment 1. Why you wouldn't last a day in a Roman bathhouse. Imagine yourself in the bustling city of Rome. The year is perhaps the 2nd century after Christ, and you are making your way through the crowded streets toward the public baths. The air is thick with the smell of cooking fires and animals. Stone-paved streets echo with the footsteps of sandals, the creak of wagons, the occasional shout from a vendor selling bread or olives. You carry a small fee, a single coin, enough to buy entry into the bathhouse. You may have worked long hours, perhaps as a laborer or a craftsman, or even a clerk for one of the city's bureaucracies. The bath is not a luxury for you. It is simply part of life. Almost everyone, rich or poor, visits these places. From the outside, the bathhouse looks impressive. High stone walls, decorated arches, the faint sound of voices from within. But once you step inside, the atmosphere changes. The first sensation is the crowd. Dozens, even hundreds of bodies moving together in confined space. You remove your clothes, leaving them in the care of an attendant, and step barefoot onto the stone floor. The surface is warm, slippery in places, and always damp. You begin in the apoditerium, the changing room. Imagine the noise. Conversations overlap in a steady hum. Children run between the adults. Attendants call out warnings against theft because pickpockets are common. The air here smells of sweat, of damp wool, of oil rubbed into skin. From here, you step into the tepidarium, the warm room. It is dimly lit. The walls are plastered smooth, decorated with faded frescoes. Warm air presses against your skin, carrying a faint tang of smoke from the furnaces below. Your pores begin to open. The stone bench is hard, and you sit for a while, surrounded by others, waiting, sweating quietly, until it is time to move on. The next chamber is the caldarium, the hot room. Here the discomfort truly begins. Imagine the sensation of steam filling your lungs, the heat pressing into your skin until your breath comes slower, heavier. Your body drips with sweat. Around you, men scrape oil and dirt from their skin with curved bronze tools called strigiles. The sound is faint but constant, a rasping scrape against flesh. It is not silent. People converse, argue, or sing softly. Some discuss politics, some gossip about neighbors, some simply endure the heat in silence. If you glance upward, you see the ceiling blackened with soot, because the bathhouse is powered by massive underground furnaces, tended constantly by slaves. The heat is relentless. You begin to feel dizzy. For a moment, you wonder if you can stand it much longer. And then, at last, you move to the frigidarium, the cold room, a plunge into water so chilling it shocks the body. Imagine the sensation, a relief and a shiver all at once. The pool is cloudy, the water reused by many, its cleanliness questionable. The smell of chlorine is unknown here. Instead, you detect the faint earthy tang of stone, of bodies, of stagnant water. And still, this is the rhythm of Roman life. Bathing was not only about cleansing, it was a social ritual, a daily habit, an expectation. You must endure the heat, the crowd, the exposure, the endless scraping and sweating. If you were weak or ill or simply unused to the strain, you would not last a day here. And yet for Romans, this was ordinary. The rhythm of their lives, the constant struggle of discomfort accepted as normal. Pause. Now. As we leave behind the steamy air of the bathhouse, let us step into another part of Rome's story. Not the routine of the common people, but the turbulence. In our next chapter, we will meet a man who wore the purple robes of the empire. An emperor whose reign was shaped by cruelty, vanity, and spectacle. We turn now to Commodus. From the steamy chambers of the bathhouse, we step now into the marble halls of power. The rhythm of Roman life did not belong only to the common people. It also pulsed through the palace, where emperors walked under painted ceilings, commanding the vast machinery of empire. And tonight, we consider the story of Commodus. Born in the year 161, Commodus was the son of Marcus Aurelius, one of Rome's most respected emperors, remembered as a philosopher, a man of thought and restraint. In contrast, his young son grew up surrounded by comfort and expectation. By the age of 5, Commodus was granted the title of Caesar. At 15, he became co-emperor alongside his father. For most Romans, adolescence was a time of work, of apprenticeship, or of military service. For Commodus, it was a time of tutors, luxuries, and the constant reminder that one day the empire itself would be his to govern. When Marcus Aurelius died in the year 180, Commodus inherited the throne. The transition was peaceful, but the tone of his rule quickly became different. Where his father was reserved, Commodus was indulgent. He was fascinated not by philosophy or governance, but by spectacle. He relished the role of emperor, not as guardian of the state, but as a performer in its greatest arena. The Senate and the administrators of Rome noticed immediately. What had once been a carefully balanced empire now became a stage for the whims of one man. Perhaps the most unusual aspect of his reign was his obsession with gladiatorial combat. Imagine the great Colosseum, tier upon tier of seats filled with tens of thousands of spectators. Normally, emperors observed from a gilded box, their presence a symbol of authority, but Commodus chose differently. He entered the arena himself, wearing gleaming armor, carrying weapons. He fought against opponents who, more often than not, were carefully selected to ensure his victory. He claimed to be the reincarnation of Hercules, even donning a lion skin and carrying a club in imitation of the hero. The people of Rome cheered, entertained by the novelty of an emperor who fought among them. But for the Senate and the elite, this was scandalous. The dignity of the empire seemed diminished. Picture the unease, watching the man who commanded legions of soldiers and provinces across 3 continents now wielding a sword before a shouting crowd, turning governance into theater. Beyond the arena, Commodus's rule grew unstable. Advisors rose and fell rapidly. Plots formed within the palace walls. The emperor's attention wavered between indulgence and paranoia. He renamed Rome itself the colony of Commodus. He renamed months of the calendar after his own titles. The empire, once defined by the collective weight of history, seemed to bend to the identity of one man. As years passed, resentment grew. Whispers filled the marble corridors. In the winter of 192, a conspiracy formed. a quiet decision that Rome could no longer bear the burden of his reign. On the final day of December, Commodus was assassinated in his palace. The man who had dressed as Hercules, who had fought in the arena, who had renamed Rome in his own honor, was silenced. His death marked the end of the Antonine dynasty. It also opened the gates to a period of turmoil known as the Year of the Five Emperors. Commodus's life illustrates the fragility of power. A single emperor's whims could redirect the empire's course. His reign was not remembered for wise laws or lasting reforms, but for indulgence, spectacle, and collapse. Now, let us step away from the palace halls and walk instead into the silence of ruins. From the life of one emperor, we turn to the remnants of an entire city. Our next chapter leads us south of Rome to Pompeii, a place where ash and stone have preserved what once was, a mystery frozen in time. Imagine yourself walking south, away from Rome. Across the Italian countryside, the air is softer here, the smell of citrus groves faint in the distance, the sea shimmering nearby. And before you rises a mountain, Mount Vesuvius. Its slopes seem calm, but you know what history will reveal. At its base lies the city of Pompeii, a bustling town of merchants, bakers, artisans, and ordinary families. A place of life, now remembered for its sudden and tragic end. When Vesuvius erupted in the year 79, the city was buried beneath layers of ash and pumice. In a single day, daily routines came to a halt, markets closed, homes filled with dust, voices fell silent. And for nearly 2,000 years, Pompeii lay hidden, its streets forgotten, its walls buried deep. Only in the 18th century did excavations begin, slowly revealing the city once more. Today, Pompeii offers us an unparalleled glimpse into the past. Not a monument or a temple alone, but an entire living space, caught in the middle of its ordinary existence. The streets. Imagine yourself stepping onto a paved street. The stones are worn smooth by countless footsteps. Deep grooves mark where carts once rolled. The air carries the faint smell of sulfur and ash, but also of bread. Along the road you pass small bakeries. Inside, round loaves of bread were once placed into ovens, heated by wood fires. Archaeologists have even uncovered loaves left behind, hardened forever by the eruption. There are taverns too, with counters of stone inlaid with jars where hot food was once served. Think of the sound. Voices rising in conversation, the clink of cups, the hum of ordinary social life. The homes step now into one of the houses. A modest home, with walls painted in red and yellow, simple patterns etched into plaster. The floor is tiled in small mosaics, cool beneath your bare feet. In the atrium, rainwater collects in a shallow pool, reflecting the sunlight. Some homes were larger. The villas of the wealthy boasted gardens, fountains, and statues. Imagine the quiet trickle of water in a courtyard fountain surrounded by columns and greenery. A place of retreat from the bustling street outside. Yet side by side with wealth, there was modesty. Tiny apartments, cramped spaces where entire families lived in one or two rooms. The rhythm of their lives shaped by labor, meals, and rest. The public spaces. Pompeii was not just houses and shops. It had theaters where plays were performed. An amphitheater, smaller than Rome's Colosseum, but alive with shouts during gladiatorial games, and temples where incense rose toward the gods. Imagine yourself sitting in the stone seats of the theater, the warmth of the sun against your shoulders, the murmur of the audience around you. A play beginning, its words carried by the acoustics of the open-air stage. These sounds, once ordinary, are gone now. But the stones still hold their shape as if waiting for voices to return. The people of Pompeii. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the city is its people. When archaeologists poured plaster into hollow spaces in the ash, human forms emerged, frozen in their last moments. some curled in corners, some shielding their faces, some reaching for one another. Their lives were cut short, suddenly, without warning, and yet in their stillness, they remind us that they were ordinary people. They walked the streets, they ate bread from the bakeries, they bathed, they laughed, they lived routines much like anyone else. No gore, no spectacle, only the quiet truth of mortality preserved in ash. The lost rooms. Even now, Pompeii is not fully uncovered. There are entire sections of the city still buried, still waiting beneath the soil. Rooms no one has entered for nearly 2 millennia. Objects left untouched since the day of the eruption. Scholars debate whether to excavate them all. Each new room offers knowledge, but also destroys the fragile preservation created by the ash. So some remain hidden, locked away in time. Imagine standing at the edge of such a buried quarter. You know there are walls, frescoes, beds, tools, and perhaps even words written on the walls in graffiti, but you cannot see them. They remain secrets of the earth. Reflection. Pompeii is not only a ruin, it is a mirror of everyday life, preserved with astonishing detail. It tells us not of emperors alone, but of bakers, tavern keepers, and children playing in courtyards. As you imagine walking through its streets, you may feel both closeness and distance. Closeness because their routines were familiar. Distance because their fate was sealed by forces beyond their control. The city remains, silent yet eloquent, a reminder of what can be lost in a single day and yet remembered for thousands of years. And so we leave Pompeii behind. From the stillness of its streets, we will move to the noise of celebration, from ruins preserved in ash to banquets preserved in memory. Dining with the Roman elite from the quiet ruins of Pompeii, let us return now to the living Rome of the empire. Not the crowded bathhouses, not the cramped homes of the poor, but the dining halls of the wealthy. A world of spectacle and indulgence, where meals were not merely about food, but about status, performance, and display. The setting. Imagine yourself stepping into a villa belonging to a wealthy Roman senator or merchant. You enter through a wide atrium, the marble floors glistening with polished mosaics, the walls painted with colorful frescoes, scenes of gods, landscapes, and mythical heroes. From there you pass into the triclinium, the dining room. The word triclinium comes from the arrangement of 3 couches set around a low table. On these couches, guests reclined, leaning on their left elbow, eating with their right hand. The air is filled with the glow of oil lamps, the faint smoke curling toward the ceiling. Music drifts softly from the corner, perhaps a flute or a harp. The setting is designed to impress. Every detail, the cushions, the silverware, the carvings on the table legs, speaks of wealth and power. The guests. At such a banquet, not everyone was equal. Guests were carefully chosen, seated according to their rank. Those of higher status were given the best places, the finest food, the choicest wine. Others of lower rank were placed in less favorable positions and served more modest dishes. Imagine reclining beside others, aware that the order of seating itself reveals one's place in the hierarchy. Even in leisure, the structure of society held firm. The food now, picture the courses arriving. At first, simple appetizers. Olives glistening with oil, eggs sprinkled with herbs, small portions of fish. Then the main dishes prepared with complexity and flair. There may be roasted meats, pork seasoned with honey, lamb rubbed with spices brought from the east, fish and shellfish, sometimes served alive moments before cooking, brought fresh from the Mediterranean. Exotic delicacies appeared too. Peacock, flamingo tongue, dormice stuffed with nuts. The flavors were often strong, combining sweet and savory in ways that might seem unusual today. Sauces made with fermented fish, called garum, flavored nearly every dish. Its sharp, salty tang filled the air, clinging to the senses. Throughout, wine was poured freely, but rarely consumed plain. Romans diluted their wine with water, mixing in herbs, honey, or spices. The vessels clink softly, the liquid reflecting the lamplight as it is passed from hand to hand. The entertainment. Banquets were never only about food. Entertainment accompanied the courses. Musicians played, dancers performed, and poets recited verses. Sometimes, acrobats or jesters provided amusement. On certain occasions, debates unfolded, with philosophers or rhetoricians exchanging ideas as others listened. The atmosphere was one of cultivated leisure, not merely to eat, but to display culture, refinement, and the wealth to sponsor such gatherings, the excess. And yet, for all its refinement, there was also excess. Some banquets stretched for hours, leaving guests heavy with food and drink. The contrast with the lives of ordinary Romans was immense. While many struggled for bread, the elite surrounded themselves with endless courses, costly ingredients, and lavish surroundings. Imagine yourself reclining there, drowsy from food and wine, lulled by the sound of soft music and murmured conversation. The air is thick with the mingled aromas of roasted meat, spiced sauces, and lamp oil. The rhythm of the banquet is slow, drawn out, indulgent. For the privileged few, this was life. For most, it was a distant dream. Reflection. As we step away from the dining hall, the contrasts of Rome become clear. The bathhouse, crowded, sweaty, communal. The palace, filled with an emperor who sought his reflection in the arena. The ruins of Pompeii, silent testimony to daily lives, ended abruptly, and the banquet hall, a place of luxury, abundance, and performance. Each was part of the same world. Each reveals a different rhythm of Roman life, and together they remind us that history is not only made of battles and laws, but of sweat, of ash, of bread, and of feasts. Closing. And so, we come to the end of this journey through Rome. You have walked the damp floors of the bathhouse. You have followed the path of Commodus, emperor turned performer. You have wandered the ash-covered streets of Pompeii, and you have reclined among the elite at their banquets. The world of Rome is distant now. Its stones are broken, its emperors long gone. But its echoes remain, in ruins, in words, and in the quiet imagination of those who still reflect on it. As you rest now, you may allow those echoes to fade into silence. The struggles and excesses of the past contrast with the calm of the present moment. Here you are safe, here you are comfortable, here you may drift into sleep, leaving behind the noise of history and finding peace in stillness. Good night.